Hello and welcome to Gavia Immer Gaming. This is Grant and I'm back with another Warhammer Fantasy battle report. Today we're playing 3,000 points of my Orcs and Goblins army against my opponent's Dwarves. We're using the new Khaine End Times magic rules, so some interesting tidbits there. Just a couple of clarifications on some of the rule questions that are out there. We're assuming that if a spell is dispelled, that means that it is not cast successfully and cannot be cast further in that round. So I think that's probably the best way to play it, and here we go. We'll take you through the dwarf army from left to right. So first we have the cannon, and then beside the cannon is a unit of 29 Correlers. In there is a Thain BSB. He has the rune of Valea, which gives him +2 to dispel. The rune of slowness, which means that every unit charging against him reduces the charge distance by d6 inches, and he's got the ancestor rune, which allows him to do a leadership check on 1d6 instead of 2. And then beside that there's 18 iron breakers, and then also in that unit is 6 runesmiths all with spell breaking runes in various combinations. Beside the iron breakers is the second cannon, and then a unit of 40 longbeards plus one more runesmith with another spell-breaking rune, and then in the building on the far right-hand side of the screen there is another cannon. Here's just a quick close-up of his right flank and a shot of his left flank. And moving on to the Orcs and Goblins army, we've got on the far left-hand side a Rock Lobber, then a Doom Diver in that tower, a second Doom Diver beside it, and in front of that a Mangler Squig. And then we've got a unit of 38 Savage Orcs. In there is Wurzag, plus another level 1 Shaman with the Shrunken Head. And then beside the Savages is a unit of 59 Night Goblins, plus a level 4 Night Goblin Shaman, and a Night Goblin War Boss. He's got a great weapon and the Wizarding Hat, and I actually rolled Lore of Fire. In there is also 3 Fanatics. Beside the Night Goblins is an Arachnarok, and then beside the Arachnarok is Grimgor and 29 Black Orcs, and then lastly another Rock Lobber on the far right hand side of the screen. The only magical piece of terrain we rolled was the Idol of Gork, which is right there in the middle of the table. Here's a picture of my right flank, and another shot just here of my left flank. And so we move on to Dwarf turn 1, and in movement all he did was just inch up his Longbeards up against the wall. He has no magic, so we go right into shooting. 2 of his cannons take aim at my Arachnarok and kill the spider. And the third cannon kills my Mangler Squig and also does 1 wound on the Doom Diver. The destroyed Mangler Squig caused the Savage Orcs to panic, and of course they shouldn't have, since they are immune to psychology due to their frenzy, but I didn't think about that and panicked my Savages. Luckily they did not flee off the board, and then his archers killed 8 of my Night Goblins. So in Orcs and Goblins turn 1, I march my Black Orcs up to go after his cannon. They're up on top of the hill there where the first unit of 10 are, and I marched up my Night Goblins. Since his crossbows outrange my arrows, I wanted to get my my bowmen into range, and I luckily rallied the Savages that had panicked. In Magic, I'm able to get Night Shroud through on my Night Goblins to provide soft cover against his shooting. He used 2 of his Dispel runes to stop the rest of my magic, and he breaks Gork'll Fix-It using 1 of the runes, so that's gone for the rest of the game. In my shooting, all my Rock Lobbers and Doom Divers either misfired or scattered, and they do nothing this turn. And this is a shot of the board after turn 1. So in Dwarf turn 2, he starts to move up his Longbeards, which you can see there at the top of the screen. And this is where they end up after their movement. And my Black Orcs just get absolutely cut down by his shooting. He's killed half the unit, 15 in total, and left them fairly ineffective for the rest of the game. In Orcs and Goblins turn 2, I move my Black Orcs down off the hill and wheel them so they are taking the cannon shots in the front instead of down the flank. I also just move my Night Goblins into range, staying out of the short range from the Dwarves, but in range for my arrows. And I march my Savages up. Here is the left side of the board after my movement, and a picture of the right side of the board. In Magic, I use Hand of Gork to move the Savages up to threaten his line. I also get Gift of the Spider Gods off one time on the Goblin Archers, and Bubble Night Shroud to provide soft cover to both the Night Goblins and the Savages. In shooting, thanks to the Gift of the Spider Gods, my poison arrows kill 8 of his Quarrelers, and I use a Rock Lobber to land right in the middle of his unit of Iron Breakers and kill 7. And here's just a shot of the entire board after turn 2. In Dwarf turn 3, he reforms his Longbeards to face my Savages. And he moves up his middle unit there, the Iron Breakers, just so that when I wheel my Savages, if I'm going to try to charge his Quarrelers, I'll actually clip those Iron Breakers, making the charge against the Quarrelers impossible. In shooting, he's able to kill 3 more of my Black Orcs. And here's just a shot of the board after Dwarf turn 3. So we move on to Orcs and Goblins turn 3, and that move by my opponent to move the Iron Breakers up to prevent the charge against the Quarrelers was a really smart play, but in the end it didn't matter because my Savages failed their Frenzy check and were forced to charge the closest enemy unit, which was the Iron Breakers anyway. And then my Black Orcs charge into the cannon. In this turn, I really knew I needed to break that first charge with the Savages against his Iron Breakers, and I had intended to declare the Waaagh, but forgot to mention it at the start of my turn. I tried to cast Hand of Gork to move my Night Goblins in to protect the flank of my Savages from his Longbeards in order to redirect them, but he was able to dispel it. Of course, Grimgor kills the cannon crew by himself. And then this was probably the most frustrating part of the game for me. I win by 5, which leaves his Dwarves needing a 4 to stick. I thought for sure I had this in the bag, was going to be able to overrun into his Quarrelers, make that charge into the flank of my Savages very long. But he had the rune that allowed him to test a break test on 1d6. And he rolled a 4, which allowed him to stick. We actually originally miscalculated the combat resolution and thought that he needed a 3. We ran through that whole scenario. He broke it, and I caught him before we realized that he actually needed a 4. And the frustrating part is that if I had declared my Waaagh as I had intended, I would have run down his unit with all of his runesmiths and got into the unit of Quarrelers, hopefully away from the flank charge that's coming from his Longbeards. Alas, another example of how bad of a player I can be sometimes. So as expected in Dwarf turn 4, he charges the Longbeards into the flank of my Savage Orcs. He also reforms his Quarrelers to face my Black Orcs. Shooting from his cannon kills this Doom Diver. And then here's just a shot of the board just before close combat. And in the close combat, he easily wins. I'm on Insane Courage to stick. I don't make it. I flee. He pursues with both his units. The Iron Breakers there that you can see, the smaller unit, pursue to this point where they release the Fanatics from my Night Goblins. So out come my 3 Fanatics. They all stop short of the unit, and he's forced to continue his pursuit right into them, taking 46 hits from the Fanatics. They kill the whole unit except for his characters, and this causes his character wall to flee from the loss of 25% of the unit. They flee from the nearest enemy, which is the remaining Fanatic. And here's just a view of the board after Dwarf turn 4. In my turn 5, I charge my Night Goblins into the fleeing unit, hoping to charge them right off the board. Can't quite push them off. And the Black Orcs charge the Archers, but fail due to the Rune of Slowness, and they get shot up with the Stand and Shoot. I am able to cast the Bubble Night Shroud to protect both the Black Orcs and my Night Goblins from his Quarrelers. And then I cast Itchy Nuisance on his Longbeards. it reduced his movement by 5 to make the charge against my Night Goblins that much harder. In shooting, like the rest of the game, basically, other than one turn, completely useless with everything scattering either 8 or 10 inches. In Dwarf turn 6, he charges my Night Goblins and I flee. In shooting, he's trying to pick up my War Machines. I think he gets one more, but really has little effect in the game. So in Orcs and Goblins turn 6, I charge my Black Orcs into his Quarreler, and then I'm able to rally my Night Goblin Archers. We actually thought this was only turn 5, so I was expecting one more turn from his from the Dwarves, so I cast Itchy Nuisance again on his Longbeards, but only lower the movement by 1. And in close combat, only Grimgor survives after issuing a challenge that was accepted by the champion of the Quarrelers. The rest of his unit, as you can see, is destroyed. Grimgor, due to the overkill and the charge, is actually able to win the combat, but he's steadfast and he holds. So a little bonus Warhammer here for you guys. We move on to Dwarf turn 7. He charges his Longbeards again into my Night Goblins, this time with the help of the Idol of Gork, which allows him to re-roll a failed charge. But this time he fails his charge, but only by 1, thanks to Itchy Nuisance. And lastly, in Orcs and Goblins turn 7, finally, after 6 turns of Khaine magic with 4d6, I'm finally able to get through all of his Dispel runes. So in this turn, I cast the double Gift of the Spider Gods to give poison on my Night Goblins on both a 5 and a 6. And then I also cast a couple of the higher level Vindictive Glares, doing 3d6 Strength 3 damage to his Longbeards. With both magic and the poison shooting, I'm able to kill 11 or 12, but he does pass his panic check. And then in the in the combat up at the top of the screen, Grimgor took 1 wound, but was able to win combat, killing enough of the Quarrelers. So there you have it, the board at the end of turn 7. It was a good game. I didn't really get a clear sense of Khaine magic. This was my first game using the new Khaine magic rules, but since he was able to shut it down so well with all his Dispel runes, I didn't really get a clear understanding of how this will impact the game. The last turn I did get to see the potential of casting multiple small spells, but in the end, good game, clear victory for the Dwarves, and hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.